Perfect. Thanks, Sam. I'll begin with the the acknowledgement of the traditional territories. When we gather on treaty lands, our Catholic social teachings call us in solidarity with our Indigenous brothers and sisters to honor and respect the four directions: lands, waters, plants, animals, and the ancestors that walked before us. We want to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the Three Fires, known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. We acknowledge the rich historical and modern traditions of the many First Nation and Métis people. We further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. And I'd like to turn it over to Mike Bethune to lead us in prayer, please.
Thanks so much, Lori. Appreciate it. June is Indigenous History Month, and today, June the 21st, is the National 25th anniversary of National Indigenous Peoples Day. It is a time for us to celebrate the heritage, diverse cultures, and outstanding achievements of the many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. And on this National Indigenous Peoples Day, we have a prayer for reconciliation. And as we gather, let us pray together in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Father God, we all know that for true reconciliation to take place, trust needs to be reestablished. Saying sorry is the first step, but not the final step. There is a long journey ahead to reestablish trusting relationships between the Aboriginal and the non-Aboriginal communities. Please strengthen us to commit to the difficult journey ahead of us. When we are tired, please refresh us so that we can continue the hard but rewarding work of healing relationships. Lord, you have shown us how to live and care for one another by the model of your Son. Please continue to illuminate the way as individuals and institutions consider which actions will be appropriate. Please give us humility and the genuine love for each other, for true reconciliation is only possible through you. May the body of Christ ensure that all we do and say leads to healthy relationships. May we never give up, ignore, or condescend others, but rather uphold your command to love our neighbor as ourselves. We thank you that your Spirit is at work to reconcile, heal, and restore, bringing light into darkness as a testament of how integral you are to the success of this process. We ask this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Lauren.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike. Just after our prayer, I'd also like to call upon everyone just to take a minute and observe just a moment of silence and offer our silent prayers for everything we hold in our hearts. It has been a long and occasionally trying, challenging year. And June especially has been challenging in our country and in our own communities. I'd like to just take a minute to offer this moment of silence for the Muslim community, for our Indigenous communities, and for all those who may be grieving today. Let's just bow our heads for a moment. Thank you, everyone. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, I guess we've started the meeting, but I'd like to technically call it to order. And we are recording and live streaming today on YouTube. Thank you to Sam for organizing all of this and keeping us in check. And I would like to call for a motion that the agenda of the regular board meeting for June 21st, 2021 be approved as presented. Motion by Norm, seconded by Linda. All in favor? Carried. Perfect. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none at this time, we can move forward to the approval of the minutes from the May 31st, 2021 meeting. I'd like to ask for a motion that the minutes of the board meeting, May 31st, 2021 be approved as printed. Motion by Mike, seconded by Bev. All in favor? And carried. Don't believe there is a committee of the whole report. Norm, could you just confirm there's nothing coming forward? Perfect, thank you. Then we will move into delegations, submissions, and educational presentations and begin with the director's report with Gary, please.
Thank you, Lori. I'm just going to share my screen with everyone. Sure. Hopefully everyone is able to see that. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to provide my final report for the year, for the academic school year. So just in terms of planning, again, just to let everyone know, we are planning for next fall. And again, as we continue to plan with the Ministry of Education and with our public health, we know and anticipate that we will be beginning the school year with some COVID safety measures in place. At this point in time, we don't know what those safety measures are. We can anticipate they will be similar to what we have been working through this year when we've been in-person learning. The minister indicated through the media that we haven't received anything formally, that I guess sometime in July we'll receive sort of final communication from the ministry as to what the school year will look like. So we've got lots of plans in place. Once we receive that final documentation from the Ministry of Education, we'll put our final plans in place and then communicate that to families as we move into late August and get ready for the opening of school. As required, we do have a virtual option for families, and our principals have connected with all of our families who've asked for the virtual option to ensure families are clear on what is available. So we've made that personal contact with everyone. So we're firming that up as well. So we will have a virtual elementary school, and our secondary students will be supported as well. So a bit more to do as we move into the fall, but that final planning will come after the final memo that we would receive from the Minister of Education, and we're anticipating that late July into August. Just a reminder for individuals. So this went out, and we're encouraging, as we continue those plans, we're encouraging families to jump into a thought exchange that has gone out. There is one for students and one for staff. As we continue to make those final plans, we encourage and want to hear the voice of our staff and the voice of our families around the fall and what the fall may look like. So encouraging people to, those links have gone out through social media. So we encourage everyone to participate in that thought exchange. Thought Exchange is a new product that we have been working with, a new company, and it's something that we are going to be using and leveraging over the next little while to gain feedback from the community. It's a good way for everyone to participate and make sure that their voice is heard. So we encourage everyone to participate. Another piece that's coming up this year, and you're going to see some communication about it as we move forward into the fall, will be a staff demographic study, and after that would be a student demographic study. So information will be going out to the system this week, advertising the staff demographic study that will take place in the fall. This is following direction from the Ministry of Education to gain a better understanding of our staff demographics. This will identify strengths and barriers to equity and inclusion in our system, and it'll lay some foundational work for as we plan to move forward. This would be in line with the Anti-Racism Act of 2017, and all Catholic district school boards, all school boards need to be in compliance by January 2023. So, and that is to complete the staff and the student demographic. So we're well on our way with that work. So awareness campaign coming through June to let people know, and because we're hoping for very good participation in the fall. So those posters that you see there will be posters that you'll see throughout the system virtually, just letting staff know that the staff demographic study is up and coming. And then just quickly, I chatted about these at the last board meeting as well, but just want to ensure our community is aware and trustees are aware of some of the summer work that's going on in terms of summer learning. So we have a junior camp Empower, we have an immediate camp Empower, we have a summer booster camp, we have Lexia summer program, there's an adaptive reading program, and then we have a corrective reading summer program. So there's lots of activities for students in terms of looking at language and literacy loss. So those plans are being firmed up, and that's some of our summer work. And then in secondary, as you know, again, just reiterating that careers and civics at this point in time, we've got 7 sections. We've got some credit recovery. We have co-ops at both secondary schools. and we have 40 students who have expressed interest in doing a summer course through e-learning. So though we're moving into the summertime, we're still active as a board and have lots moving forward as we move into the summer in terms of elementary learning and secondary learning. And then finally, we're into graduation season. They're underway. You may have seen some lawn signs. So again, elementary graduations, a virtual grad prayer service and ceremony with drive-through diplomas, and lawn signs are also ordered for our elementary students. And then secondary, again, a variety of different activities that are taking place. And then drive-by graduations, virtual graduations, ensuring that these important milestones in the lives of our students are marked. They are important times in students and families' life, and we want to ensure that during all of this COVID times that we're honoring our graduates as they move on to the next phase in their life's journey. A shorter report this month as we have a bigger presentation upcoming, and so I respectfully submit my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Gary. Are there any questions for Gary regarding his report at this time? Okay, seeing none, I would like to ask for a motion that the board receive the director's report as presented. Motion by Norm, seconded by Bev. All in favor? Carried. Great, thank you, everyone. Gary, would you like to carry on with the Student Senate?
Yes, thank you. Just ensuring everyone can hear me. There we go. Good, thank you. So I just wanted to, a few questions had come forward just around how our Student Senate works. And I've asked Quinton to jump in a little bit just to give a little idea as to what some activities that have been taking place at St. Mary's this year. So as you know, our Student Senate is relatively new in terms of Student Senate. It's a few years old. It is set out in policy and procedure, so Board Policy BP 39 and AP 39. And both, again, were adopted in 2019. So this is relatively new for our board. And part of the unfortunate piece is as they have been growing as Student Senates, we've been doing so during school closures, during in-person learning, and then more school closures. So it has been a challenge to really dig in and get some deep work done. However, I want to congratulate both Student Senates at both high schools for still engaging in the work. I think what we would like to do next year is to work with our Student Senate just to review the AP to make sure it's meeting the needs. We have had some feedback from one of the chaplains around some suggested changes. So Superintendent Van Wergen and myself are going to be working on that next year. So, but just to give you a high level overview. So the importance of the Senate is to ensure that we have proper representation of the students' voices at the board level. It's vital to have discussion of these elected representatives who can address the needs and that they find impactful to our school board. So we have the Student Senate, we have the Student Trustee, and then we have Students Parliament. So we have lots of layers and levels for students to engage in this work. And that is the collective voice of the students that we will have. So all the individuals, again, our focus is holding up the well-being as the highest priority that we would have to uphold Catholic virtues. So that is the focus of the Student Senate. Again, this is all laid out in our board policy and our procedure. If you want to do a more deeper dive into that, I'm just sort of giving everyone sort of a highlight overview today. So, and to be eligible to be a student senator, so you must serve for a minimum of 1 year. You must be a full-time student. You must be a model and exemplary student that upholds Catholic leadership, an active participant in your community, and be a student in good standing within the school. So as you can see, there's very broad, there's opportunity for all members of our community to be part of the Student Senate. Again, the roles and the duties of our Student Senate. The selected students will be representative of the student body. They'll be active participants in their school communities and maintain regular attendance. They'll communicate on a regular basis with their peers about the role of Student Senate and the issues discussed at board meetings, so that there'll be that opportunity for that connection to the board meeting, with the Student Trustee, with Student Parliament, and with the Student Senate. So those opportunities to layer in the conversations around student governance and how that would be how that would impact the functioning of the board and ensure that the student voice is resonating. So they can be, and here's how students can participate. They can, members may be elected in one of the following ways. They can be directly by the student, by students, so the student body, indirectly by members of the student representation, like the student council and or the previous Senate. The election will be held no later than the 28th of February. So one of the things that we need to work on is just ensuring the time frame, I think, in the functioning and the time frames. So what we're setting down and what's happening may be a little disconnected. So that's some of the work that we need to continue to work on as we move through with the Student Senate. The importance is that, again, we're 2 years into our Student Senate, and both of those years have been interrupted years in terms of learning. Student Senate should, for a student trustee, they should be present at all meetings and in charge of organizing and overseeing the group meetings. So there's a role with our student senator, our student trustees to play with Student Senate. The chaplain is an integral piece of that work, and to ensure that it's a really important, meaningful dialogue that takes place at the Senate table. So, and again, I want to commend our chaplains, our student trustees, and our student senators who have engaged in this work during COVID period to ensure that they're still meeting and they're still fulfilling their obligations as a student senate. The one piece that we have not been able to do due to COVID is to bring both student senates together to have that cross-school dialogue and that system level conversation. So that's the one piece that we've not been able to participate in. And hopefully as we move through these COVID times, next year that will be a focus for us, whether that is we go to one school or we meet centrally at the board office, where it's an important opportunity to bring student voices together. Again, the elected students and the Senate members will be in charge of attending meetings, bringing topics of discussion. Certain elected representatives will be in charge of monitoring minutes. So each school will be working on that. And again, usually it's the principal and the chaplaincy lead who are working with the Student Senate to provide that adult leadership as they move forward. But again, it really needs to be the voice of the students resonating through that with the support of the administrative team and the chaplaincy. So that is sort of, if you will, the high level policy and or procedure. And Quentin, I was just wondering, as kind of we had sent an email back and forth, if you could just maybe jump in just for a minute or two, just to give an update as to some of the work that's happened in as a student trustee, and you, from your lens as a student trustee, as to what's been happening in the Student Senate at St. Mary's. So
yeah, I definitely can share on that. As for this year, like Gary said, the Student Senate has really been affected by COVID. Between in school, out of school, lockdowns, not mixing the cohorts, we've slightly struggled to meet as a Student Senate altogether. But I think we did meet close to once a month, if not once a month. And really this year was more just kind of setting up our Student Senate for the first time, getting everybody used to it, kind of everybody figuring out the roles, including myself. Like I wasn't really aware of what a Student Senate was at first. But as we progressed through the year, we all figured out, and we didn't get any projects going this year, but we discussed just how the students were feeling, and just a lot of it came through of what other students had been hearing and how people are dealing with the online learning in school. So that's really where my board reports would always start, is going at the Student Senate meeting, taking some notes in the minutes, and then incorporating that into my board report. So that was really helpful to create that. And it was just a lot better to use kind of 8 students or 9 students, I can't remember the exact number we had, to build, to get more voice to the reports and to the board.
Thanks, Quentin. Thanks for that. And thank you to you and your fellow Student Senate members for persevering and showing determination and grit during these times to keep Student Senate moving forward. I think this is something that we want to continue to move forward with, and to build capacity with our Student Senate. It's just a great opportunity to have student voice and to enrich the voice of the students and the voice of our student trustees as well. So Chair DeCastri, that's just a quick update on Student Senate, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Gary. I see Robin has a question.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, Gary. It's nice to have a little more background on the Student Senate. And the two issues may have nothing to do with each other, but is it the student senate that chooses the student trustee? Because, and maybe I'm the only one that feels this way, but I've often felt the student trustee should be selected from the entire school body, not from a handful. And I know over the last few years, if I understand it correctly, the student trustee is selected from a handful of students. I think it's student council. And maybe these two issues have nothing to do with each other, but I still think it should sort of, they're supposed to emulate trustees where we're elected by everybody. I still think there's some merit considering going back to the old system where the student trustee is elected from the entire school body. And maybe this is a different issue, but I know I'd raised that and you said that you would bring a report forth about student senate. And I really do appreciate this. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into the student senate. And I congratulate students for all the work and the challenges they've had this year.
You're still on mute, Gary.
Jump in between screens. Yeah, Robin, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I'm just going to minimize my screen because I have the board procedure around electing the student trustee, which is Administrative Procedure AP 37. And in that Section 8, election procedures, clearly outlines how we elect trustees. So, maybe that's something that Quinton, myself, and Mackenzie could take back in terms of looking at that and having a conversation with student senate as to how student trustees are elected next fall is kind of part of the work that we do. But as for right now, it's clearly defined in that policy. So, but thanks for the question and the suggestion and your thoughts, and it's definitely something that we'll consider next year and explore more fully. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe I'm the only person in the world that feels that way. I just know this was traditionally how it was done until, I don't know if it's been a handful of years. It was when Catherine Montroy was the director. And I think Luke Zettel was the student trustee at the time when things changed over. And not that it isn't working, but I really would love to see the entire school body choose their representative rather than a handful of students. Yeah. Not that they haven't done a good job, but I'm thinking it's sort of a democratic process. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Robin. Is there any other questions for Gary or even Quinton as the student on the ground who's here today? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Gary, for that presentation. And we can move forward to student achievement skills and pathways with the special education plan and report for 2020-2021. Alex, if you'd like to go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. For some reason, my computer is not letting me share my screen.
We do have the link live in the agenda if everyone can access that, or if someone else wants to share it.
Share it for you if you'd like.
That'd be great, Sam, if you could do that. I think there's some security restrictions on my computer that's not allowing Zoom to share my second desktop. Thanks, Sam. So I'm happy to present our special education plan and report for the 2020-2021 school year. If we can go to the next slide, Sam, thanks. Just to go through the process of what we did this year, even during our COVID time, our special education team at the board office, in consultation with the schools and some of our public members, went through the report over the past, since the beginning of the school year, over the past few months, and made some amendments to the report. And on May 19th, we shared it with our SEAC committee for the review. And we gave our SEAC committee the month to take a look at it. And on June 16th, all the amendments were made and our SEAC committee approved it. Which brings us to today, June 21st, where I'm proudly presenting it to you, the board, for a motion to approve so that we can share it then with the ministry by July 31st. So just some of the amendments that were made. Nothing major has been changed. There are though some clarifying features in it that I'll share with you. So Sam, if you could go to the next. Right, so throughout the document, we just made some formatting changes that made the document a little more readable as we move forward. And that we just made some corrections throughout there just to spruce up the document itself. In section 2 of the plan, we did make some changes in terms of some wording. So we changed the word integration to inclusion, and that was part to meet with our equity process that we're going through now. In section 6, we have updated and added some of our assessment tools that we use this year and that we're going to be moving forward using. And then another little larger change is that in section 6, we've included our mental health workers this year, and we added the supports that they provide for our board. So that's something that's an addition that's fairly big to our plan. In section 7, we just updated and changed some of our service agency names to reflect the services that they now provide for us. And then in section 11, the number of students attending our provincial and demonstration schools from our board has been updated to reflect those students that went away for this school year. And then in section 12, we just shared the numbers of special education staff and updated those numbers throughout our board. So the number of resource teachers, the number of EAs, and support staff within our buildings that are supporting special education. And those numbers, I'm happy to say, did increase to provide the supports that we needed this year. And then last of all, section 17, we updated our SEAC committee membership and put the names of the agencies that were participating, and happy to say we had a couple more agencies join us this year. So, and we're looking to increase those numbers moving forward. So again, those are all the changes and amendments that we made to the plan and the report. There weren't nothing major or significant were made, but then I respectfully submit it to you for some questions or a motion to approve. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Alex. Does anyone have any questions for Alex regarding the special education plan and report? We do have a live copy of the full report in our agenda, and everyone's had a chance to read it. So at this point, I'd like to, seeing no questions, ask for a motion that the board approve the special education plan and report 2020-2021 as printed. Motion by Linda, seconded by Norm. All in favor? Carried. Excellent. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
And we can move on to mental health and well-being. We have Dave Roy and Jen Kirby here. Oh, I'm sorry, I should hand this over to Kathy to introduce Mr. Roy and Mrs. Kirby for their climate surveys. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So as you know, every school board is expected to complete a school climate survey with their students, and our board climate survey was sent to our students earlier this year. And yep, our dynamic duo, Dave Roy and Jen Kirby, are joining us this morning to provide an overview of the survey results. So welcome to Dave and Jen.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting us. I was asked to keep it brief, which you know, is a tough thing to ask a social worker, and probably more particularly a tough thing to ask me because I have a hard time keeping it brief. But I am going to do my best, and to that end, I have not. I don't have a slide deck to share with you. You can see the summary report that was compiled by Jen Kirby is attached to the agenda, and so that's there for you to look through at your leisure. And I just want to highlight a few points, sort of from each of the parts of the survey. So. In terms of the survey for grade 1 to 4, and actually this you know, is actually for all of the survey for all of the grade levels, we did see a significant decrease in the number of respondents. for the younger elementary grades and for the mid to grade 12 survey. I don't know exactly why that is, but I do think that it does speak to the need for the board, for senior admin to think about how we want to communicate with our educators about the importance of the survey. We did not do, it wasn't sort of a lot of fanfare that accompanied the survey. Certainly this was communicated out to all of the principals and vice principals. I don't know if it would have helped if we had, said, this is going to be survey week, or, and put more fanfare to it. That could be something that's, tracks back to my responsibility. As we kind of went into the pandemic, things, the focus changed. I had not conducted one of these climate surveys previously. We spent a lot of time trying to look at the previous survey from 2018 and tweak it so that we could include some other pieces, including some questions related specifically to the pandemic for our older grades. And so I don't know if that's something we need to look at, but we definitely want to see if we can get our numbers up collectively in the grade 1 to 4 results. We saw a drop in respondents from 729 kids in 2018 to 439 in 2021. And when we look at the grade 4 to 8 results, in 2018, we had 2,456 respondents, and that dropped to 1,966 in 2021. So, yeah, I think that's a bit problematic, because we definitely want to get feedback from as many kids as possible. Other points out of the elementary survey, and this one is actually of most concern to me, I would say, out of the entire thing, and that's that 50% of respondents report that school is sometimes a welcoming place, which suggests to me that there's a lot of kids who are still feeling that school is not a welcoming space, or they feel that it's not a welcoming space all of the time or for the majority of time, and I think that's of concern. 60% of respondents reported that they always feel as though they belong in their class, which again is a much lower number than I would like to see. On the upside, 90% report feeling that they're provided with some learning about emotions at school. So our focus over the last couple of years has really been on social emotional learning, and that continues to be the focus. It was the focus when we re-entered our schools, and we want to keep that the focus moving forward, and that would suggest we're making some headway there. The other standout sort of statistic from that survey, 90% of students reported having stress. So again, I think that just, I guess, puts a fine point on what the last couple of years has been like for our kids. 25% of students indicate they always experience stress. We saw a bit of a shift from, in terms of response, from always to sometimes, in terms of feeling comfortable with identity and self-expression. And again, I really feel that moving forward, that's going to be something that we have to think about. And fewer students reported being able to identify a caring adult at school. In terms of another big plus, we saw a huge decrease in report of alcohol and cannabis use amongst those students grades 7 to 12. So we should see that as being a big, big positive, I would say. I think in general, despite the fact that, we've got these students reporting that they're a little less likely to have a caring adult that they can identify, certainly in the younger grades, we saw students who continue to feel heard by adults. And on that side of things, they are able to identify a caring adult. So it's as we move into sort of the older grades that we see kids less likely to identify somebody that they can talk to. We've also got in the younger grades report of improved resiliency when trying difficult tasks. So a feeling that I can overcome and that I can improve when I'm faced with a difficult task. The other interesting thing in the younger grades, and this was for the first time, we actually included an option. So you could identify as a male or a female, but we also included the option prefer not to answer, prefer not to identify a gender. And 9% of students in grades 1 and 4 said that they preferred not to identify their gender, which we thought was quite interesting. And something that we need to actually think about moving forward. So what's more important, I guess, to me is, beyond the survey. I mean, the survey is one thing, but what's really important is to think about what we're going to do with the results. And as I said, it concerns me that we have large numbers of kids who are reporting that they don't feel necessarily safe or comfortable in school. And to that end, we need to think about how can we get better? How can we equip our educators and the rest of our staff with the skills that would change that? And so this summer, actually, we are moving forward with training the entire mental health staff in the approach of circle of security. And circle of security is based in attachment theory. And it trains people to recognize where kids are at in terms of the circle. So if you're top of the circle, you are feeling capable and you're feeling secure and you're able to take on new tasks and feel confident about that. If you're bottom of the circle, you are feeling some level of discomfort and insecurity and dysregulation. And often how you behave then, it depends on sort of how you're feeling, top or bottom of the circle. And there are specific things that we want to do that we can put in place to support kids, to encourage them more when they're top of the circle. And there are specific things we need to do to support kids when they're bottom of the circle to help them to get back to the top. And so we are going to train all of the mental health staff. We hope to move forward with a circle of security approach with the board. We have invited principals and vice principals to join us in that training as champions, and we've had a huge response. We've got great uptake from our principals and vice principals. Jen, I think we have 9 or 10 who signed on to take the training to work with us to start to communicate those skills out to their staff groups. And I'm anticipating that will have a huge impact on how kids feel about being at school. And the circle of security stuff will apply regardless of age. So you can be a teenager and all of those techniques will still apply. Kathy and Jen and I have spent some time talking about our mental health action plan. And I think what you're going to see is a big focus on outcome measurement and evaluation as we move forward in the next year. It's great to have a plan. It's great to have those words on the paper and to make those statements. It's great to have a climate survey. But we want to make sure that we are moving forward and making change here. And the only way to do that, we have to evaluate the things we're putting in place, and we have to evaluate fidelity to the models that we're recommending. Otherwise, those things just remain words on the page. So anyway, Jen, I don't know if you have something that you would like to add to this. I'm going to stop talking now.
Certainly, I just, we highlighted some of the I think more shocking highlights from the survey results, but there's lots of positives in there as well. Really encouraged by the resilience piece, really encouraged by our students' sense of faith and being able to see themselves within the community and being able to do that. So lots of positives there as well. It was definitely challenging this year to have the survey be executed in a timely way, given the different breaks due to the COVID response. So that was a bit of a challenge, and certainly something to consider when we move forward and thinking about how safety might be perceived by our students. And then again, just kind of aside, I did survey staff about mental health and what they might be interested in terms of PD, and the response that I received was really around that trauma-informed approach. And so social emotional learning and the circle of security all fits into that framework in terms of attachment and relationship and where that comes into play within schools. And so I think we're all on the right page. They're all on the right page. We just need to continue to do the work to consolidate the foundation. So thanks for having us, and we'll take any questions.
Great, thank you. I see Robin and then Bev with questions, if you'd like to go ahead.
So just a quick clarification, and then I'll be able to do my question. Am I correct in understanding that the survey went out while kids were doing online school?
So the initial survey was sent out. It was initially sent out when we returned after January's break. And then we had a group of students that were I think still, we had moved into the closure at that time that completed it as well. So we got a cross section.
Okay, because my thoughts that some of the negative reactions, especially on not being able to find a caring adult or the increase in stress, there's probably a direct correlation to the lockdowns, doing school online. Some of our kids excel, but some of our kids really struggle. It's a challenge for kids, it's a challenge for parents. And I really shudder at the thought of how many kids have really fallen behind. I know they say, well, everybody has, but I think there's been some, it's going to be really hard for kids to get, I'm not articulating myself correctly. I think the lockdown and the online school has been very difficult for some kids, which has elevated their stress and the constant fear and everything out there. So I'm not surprised that stress has increased. I'm sad about the less caring, caring adults, even though I know they're there, but perception is reality for people. And if that's what they perceive, that's very sad. And I'm wondering if that's too a component of not being in the school physically. And I'm sure the survey results could be lower because of that too. And it's just, I'm really glad that the school board took the time to do this, because we need to see this from the students' perspective. And now we have information to arm ourselves to see how we can address all of this. But this certainly hasn't been a typical school year, nor has last year. And I hope we're going to do better. But I think this whole online schooling has taken a toll on some students, and it's certainly taken a toll on parents too. And everybody's stressed and everybody is challenging and everybody's just doing the best they can with what they have. And I'm really glad that you're using tools like this to reach out to students, and hopefully we'll come up with some, you guys, will come up with some strategies that will be successful. Thank you for sharing it.
I would say, Robin, I am worried about how kids will do. I'm less worried, I'd have to say, overall about their academic potential. I think you'll see that kids have fallen behind, but what's important to me is how quickly they can catch back up. And what I think we know is that if we focus on connection with these kids and letting them know that we're behind them and how powerfully we're behind them, that their ability to catch up, I'm just not as concerned about that. I'm sort of not happy with CBC and their continuing dire reports on the devastating impacts on kids. I think they underestimate the resiliency in these kids and how well they can do when they've got the support network behind them. And this board provides a powerful support network. And I hear that all the time out in community. From people, they're kind of agog at the amount of support that's offered by this board. And I think that's really going to stand our kids in good stead.
And thank you. I should have clarified. Yes, it's taken a toll academically, but my main concern is emotionally and mental well-being, because I've seen it in my own family, I've seen it with other parents who've told me, you know, their kids are not where they were before emotionally, and it's taking a real strain on kids and on families. And yes, you can bounce back from academics a lot better than you can bounce back from, you know, mental health problems and things like that. And I just, I worry about those kids that need that connection in the school and things like that. So yes, that should be your number one focus. And I should have articulated that a little better, because yes, that comes before academics, of course.
Great, thanks, Robin. Bev, if you'd like to go ahead with your question.
Thanks, Dave and Jennifer, for all the great work you're doing. As you had stated, Dave, your concern was the 50% of respondents reports that school is sometimes a welcoming space. And that's my huge concern. I do hear that from some students. And I'm really happy to hear that you are having this training and you're bringing in the vice principals and principals. I would like to see a step forward that we train all staff. I don't know, through a PD day, but it has to be with all staff. Because I honestly believe, honestly, the quieter staff, such as the custodial secretaries, library technicians, they're the quiet ones, and they hear and see a lot more than a lot of the teachers do, because they're very busy with focusing on the classroom. So I look forward to making a change, listening to the kids and making it happen. I agree with you. And I hope our board, and I know our board will fully support you in every way to make that happen, to get rid of the systemic things that are happening in our schools. It's a lot of work, but I really believe with the staff and with you two at the helm, things can happen. So please keep up the good work, and I look forward to how things progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any further questions for Jen or for Dave? Great. I just want to take a second to say thank you for sharing the report. I know some of the data can be a little disheartening, but as you've recognized yourself, we need to have that data so we know how to move forward, who to connect with, and what supports are really needed. So I do have one quick question. I'm just curious when you'd look to redo the climate survey, I guess, because we could get maybe a year out of COVID and get some sort of truer data again.
Yeah, it's typically every 2 years that it's been asked to be.
So I think my understanding is every 2 years. So every 2 years. But I mean, having said that, there's nothing to stop us from, surveying at other times. And so we might want to sort of take, the pulse of our school communities a little sooner than that as we come out of the pandemic, I think. And I think this thought exchange, I mean, we've talked about what other opportunities do we have to gather information in different ways through the year. And so we talked about, student focus groups and taking little snapshots in other ways and not waiting the 2 years till the big survey. So I think we'll probably, we'll find other ways to gather information sooner.
Perfect. Good. I look forward to that data too. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks.
And I just got to jump back to my agenda here. We can move on to the stewardship of our resources with the 2021-2022 much anticipated budget. Alicia, if you'd like to go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Lori. I am just going to share my screen here.
Alicia, just before you jump in, I just want to mention that we were in a meeting the other day and one of our ministers commented on how excellent our budgets are and how we work very hard and stay in budget and have recognition for that. So Alicia, just a thanks to you for all your hard work. That public recognition was made the other day. So go ahead. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Can everyone see my screen that says purpose is the reason we journey, passion is the fire that lights our way? Is that what's out there now? Okay, great. So good morning, everyone. On behalf of the senior administration team, I am pleased to present you with the details of our balanced and compliant budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. As presented during our GSN presentation in May, our 2021-2022 budget theme is Purpose is the Reason We Journey, passion is the fire that lights our way. And this is a theme that is driven by our desire to meet the needs of each and every student through opportunities that engage, inspire, and nurture our Catholic values. So the past year has presented a number of uncertainties, and on behalf of the senior administration team, we would like to commend our staff for the amount of time invested in reaching out to support students and families and to ensure the health, well-being, and safety of all. The time invested in engaging in professional learning sessions and online meetings, embracing new ways of teaching through the delivery of synchronous and asynchronous learning sessions, as well as balancing family commitments. As Catholics, we are called to be people of hope, and as we look forward to the 2021-2022 school year with optimism, we continue to remain committed to the health, well-being, and safety of all. So the details presented in this report are a collective effort by many stakeholders and capture our commitment to the board's mission, vision, belief statements, and multi-year strategic plan. So in honor of our Indigenous communities and International Indigenous Peoples Day, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Ashnabek Nation, the people of the Three Fires known as the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. I am so honored to present this budget book to you today. And although there were many hands who helped with the information this year, there were 5 whom were by my side for the entire ride. And I'd like to give a huge shout out and recognize Kathy Kelly, who is the mastermind behind the design and presentation in this book. This design started right after we presented the previous budget, and we've continued to add to it throughout the entire year. Also, Jamie Carter, Shelley McDermott, Saskia Lennox, and Lynn Hahn, who have assisted with consolidating and reconciling the information that has been embedded into this presentation. And I know the hours that we've invested to bringing the numbers alive. So many thanks to our team and to all who were involved in creating this. On page 7, I would like to recognize a truly tremendous team of professionals who have taken on the challenges of the past 2 years head on. It is this team who has the ultimate responsibility for the 159 program codes, the planning and the efforts that going into living out our vision and strategic plan for the betterment of our students and our staff. And I would like to personally thank each of them for the assistance in helping to verbalize the planning through these program codes for our 2021-2022 budget. On page 8, I would like to recognize our dedicated team of trustees who always have the best interest of our students and staff at heart, and who will have the opportunity to provide the approval for the final budget as presented today. Thank you for your continued support and dedication to our board and to Catholic education in Bruce and Gray. On page 9, I'd like to recognize our very own Bev Eckenswaller for being awarded the Oxta Presidency Award this past year. Bev, I know it has been said many times, but your contributions to Catholic education within our board and across the province is truly commendable. And I'm so pleased that we can continue to recognize and celebrate you for all that you do. So congratulations on this very prestigious award. On page 12, we have our school listing for 21-2022. And we will recognize our principal changes in a moment, but I'd like to highlight the heart at the bottom. This heart and the term heart, helping everyone achieve rewards together, was a slogan and a design concept by one of our own custodians, Farrell Melks, from St. Peter's St. Paul's in Durham. So Kathy Kelly helped us to craft the design in a way that would allow us to print the design on t-shirts. And during Catholic Education Week, we posted the t-shirts for sale amongst our staff, and were able to raise over $500 to support the food bags we created for our families in need. So this was just one of our first fundraisers, and we'll be sure to run it again in the new school year. So it's a great slogan and a great opportunity to participate as a community and a great cause in support of our families. On page 13, we recognize our mission and our vision of being committed to a vibrant Catholic education as we ensure quality learning experiences through community partnerships that nurture each student in body, mind, and spirit, and embrace the teachings of Christ, giving witness to gospel values. On page 14, we recognize our belief statements and our virtues. And I love the quote by Pope Francis that states, "No act of virtue can be great if it's not followed by advantage for others. So no matter how much time you spend fasting, no matter how much you sleep on the hard floor and eat ashes and sigh continuously, if you do no good to others, you do nothing great." And I know I speak for most of us when I think about our monthly virtues. It is Norm Bethune and your monthly wise words of wisdom that get highlighted at our meetings. So thank you, Norm, for your continuous gift to us of your wise words of wisdom. On page 15, and last but certainly not least, of all of our guiding documents is our multi-year strategic plan. So with mental health and well-being, student achievement, and stewardship of resources wrapped in the arms of our Catholic faith and culture. And all of this has been embedded in our 2021-2022 budget. On page 16 and 17, we recognize some of the exciting changes as we head into September 2021. So tag teaming at Sacred Heart High School is Mark Dunn and Christy Hopcroft. We have Brad Lacey, who will be rejoining the St. Mary's High School family as VP to work alongside Mike Kirby and Michael Murphy. We have Dan Pitt joining the St. Teresa community, Carrie Girdler moving back to Chepstow to support Mary Immaculate community. We have Leslie Borkamp engaging in some really exciting planning as she moves into the Teeswater community. And we have Greg McLean joining the Mildmay community at Sacred Heart. And in Durham, we have Jocelyn Auger, who will be joining the Sacred St. Peter's and St. Paul's family. So on pages 19 to 24, it takes us on a walk and highlights some of the exciting announcements and bright spots over the past year. This is definitely not an exhaustive list, but a snippet of things that speak to who we are as an organization. And on page 25, we will give thanks and appreciation for our community partners. We are, as an organization, so honored and so proud of the dedicated community partners that we have and the staff that work very closely with our community partners to continue to support and engage our students through experiential learning opportunities. So here's just quickly move through these. So expansion at St. Mary's High School, our St. Anthony's announcement, bright spots in terms of equity, diversity, inclusion, our food drive, science fair, some more bright spots. Community partnership information. So I'm going to jump down to page 31. So we continue to add to our yearbook as we insert 2020 and 2021. So some key highlights specific to the board include the rollout of one-to-one devices for grades 4 to 12 in September of 2020. On October 31st, we had the announcement at St. Mary's High School, which is another milestone in our journey to finding additional spaces for our students. And then on page 32, December 4th, we blessed the opening of St. Teresa of Calcutta edition. Starting Boxing Day, we entered a 4-week shutdown and pivot to remote learning. At the end of January, we moved back to in-class learning. And then March break, which was originally scheduled for March 15th to 19th, was moved to April 12th to 16th. And this would be the start of what would become remote learning to the end of the school year. And then just recently, June 10th, we received the announcement of the additional funding for St. Anthony's 8 classroom and 4 childcare addition with the expansion of the gym, the new bus route, parking, and office spaces, which we continue to work hard behind the scenes to mobilize. So a huge shout out to Al Hasty and Kathy McLennan from SRM for their efforts and support. On page 34, this provides you with a quick, with the highlights and a quick tutorial of some key information. So I've posted it here on the screen for you to review, but we'll continue into the details. On page 36 and page 37, it summarizes our GSN presentation. I've also included that presentation in Appendix A, and this was the information that we presented at the May board meeting. On page 38 and 39, we have pulled down and summarized our COVID-19 specific funding. And as detailed through the GSN presentation, only 50% of the funding allocated could be accounted for through our 21-22 budget. Therefore, through a combination of priority and partnership funds and GSN related funding, we're dedicating $1.3 million to supporting COVID-19 efforts directly as we enter into September. And the various funds are summarized here with respect to the amounts. So we've showed it in two different ways. So on page 38, it is shown by the different funding sources. And on page 39, it's shown by category and class. And we're going to see this throughout the budget book. We're able to kind of slice and dice our information in a few different ways. So we are going to be down. It does look, well, as you see here, when you compare it to our revised budget, we are down 1.6 million. And this is just reflective of our move. It's reflective of the funding announcements that have been made. Also, the biggest impact I can share with you from last September when the boards were redoing their classroom allocations, we made the executive decision as a board not to reorganize. And we know that it's a significant amount of work for our administrators and our teachers and would have resulted in increased class sizes as we moved into a period of strict cohorting and other health and safety related measures. So as a result, we increased our staffing to support this decision last September. So moving into September 2021, we've been asked to reinstate our normal operations and reflect class sizes that more closely resemble pre-COVID operations. So we have done this. However, I can share that our class size limits continue to remain lower than average, even though we've had to reduce our staffing complement. And you'll see that throughout our budget book. So the next section, in terms of budget preparation, speaks specifically to some behind the scenes comments and details that we follow. So page 41 details our process. So we start back, it actually starts in November. Actually, after this budget meeting, our Kathy usually helps to get our template set up. And so it starts even earlier than that, but a lot of our long-term forecasting and those kinds of things start in November as we're working on our revised estimates. On page 42 speaks to our planning assumptions for both internal and external requirements. So my goal is always to present a budget that first and foremost ensures it speaks to the needs of our students and staff that we serve. And underlying that, it must be realistic, financially responsible, balanced, and compliant. So the technical papers outline the details we have included here, as there are requirements that we must adhere to regarding specific funding sources, such as library staff allocation, special education grants, Indigenous education, mental health allocations, school board and administration and governance allocations, school condition improvement, renewal, temporary accommodation funding, just to name a few. So there's a number of restrictions that we have in place on some of these funding sources. And so we've abided by all of those rules as we've put our budget together. On page 43, this is where we've identified some of our challenges and our risks. So related to funding and forecasting, we don't truly know the impacts of COVID-19 will be for September. So our budget is reflective of our best conservative efforts. We do need to look at the needs and think about how might we balance these needs against lots of competing priorities. So I feel like we've done a great job reflecting this throughout our budget. We do have a lot of enrollment and capacity pressures as we can continue to seek out capital priority opportunities, creative learning opportunities for our students, and rentals of additional spaces beyond the 25 portables that we already currently own. From an HR perspective, we are challenged with the increases in sick leave as well as labor shortages, especially when we had strict protocols regarding cohorting and management of COVID-19 cases. From a program perspective, we are anticipating that what our complex needs may be for September, but until we have the children in our care, we may need to reevaluate and change direction in September. So this is why the revised estimates is so important. It allows us the opportunity to revise our plans based on needs as they occur. Cybersecurity is always top of mind, keeping our IT infrastructures updated and our data safeguarded. Our tech teams, led by David Gard, Manager of Technology Systems and Security Services, has done a tremendous job updating and transforming our systems behind the scenes. And we've done a lot of work and look forward to continuing this work in 2021, 2022. Again, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it highlights things that we keep in the back of our mind as we fit all the puzzle pieces together through this budget. And the other piece to this is really around our mitigating strategies that we put into place. So we look for we continuously look for cost savings initiatives where possible, by consolidating some of our systems and looking for efficiencies in our processes. We monitor our enrollment, especially that first week of school, to determine any staffing changes that may be required. From a tangible capital asset perspective, we put some controls in place where some of our minor TCA or minor tangible capital asset projects are held off until later in the school year, just because we're able to leverage those funds from an operating perspective and until we have some more certainty as we continue to monitor our financial results. Also, we do monthly financial reporting, so we're able to kind of track and trend where we are financially. And we do have accumulated surplus as a contingency fund. However, as I've kind of stated in the past, it isn't an option that I like to explore if we can avoid it, especially since it could jeopardize our future projects and planning. So by working collaboratively together and collectively together, all staff across the board, we can easily pivot within our existing budgets and set ourselves up for success. So on page 44 and 45, we share our budget consultation, and new this past year, I was very excited to be able to leverage Thought Exchange. This was a tool where we asked a question and allowed participants to submit an anonymous response. And on page 44, you can see where we had 105 participants, 75 thoughts posted, and of those 75 thoughts, we had 1,301 ratings or stars that were granted. So the top three rated thoughts are more EAs, educational field trips, and more EA and ECE support. And at the bottom of page 44, you can see the word graph that was generated from all the thoughts. So the bigger the word, the more times that word was referenced. So you can see the word EA really stands out. So throughout our budgeting process, we have taken all of these comments into consideration. The other piece that Thought Exchange also does is it helps us to capture the thoughts into themes. And the top three themes were focus on kids learning, educational support, and technology learning. And then the top three rated comments for each of these themes have been included in the budget book. Okay, so this is where we insert a drum roll. So as we take a look at the budget details. So in 2021-2022, it's going to bless us, our board, with $69.4 million operating budget and a $7.9 million capital budget. And we'll get to those details in a moment, but we continue to make history as this is the biggest original budget in terms of dollars for our board to date. Page 48 speaks to our enrollment. So enrollment is a key component in the calculations of the ministry grant. As a result, the senior administration team has a fiduciary duty to ensure the enrollment forecast is prepared conservatively, and a large portion of the board's funding allocation is based on average daily enrollment. So what that means is that we take account at October 31st and we take account at March 31st, and those two account dates are averaged together to provide us with the average daily enrollment. And a fun fact to share with you is that 2/3 of the grants for student needs are based on average daily enrollment. So just some key overall highlights. Our overall enrollment is up 2.7% over the 2021 revised budget. The resulting utilization for our board facilities is projected to be 111%. Based on the 2021 projected enrollment, all class size targets have been met and collective agreements have been honored. And total staffing is projected to decrease by 2.4% over revised budget as a result of grade allocation changes and changes to program offerings. And salary and benefits will remain the largest operating expenditure of the board, representing $53.5 million or 77.2% of expenditures. So looking at our enrollment in a little more detail on page 49, we are estimating 4,658 average daily enrollment for 2022, which represents a 2.7% increase over the revised estimates, but it is a 0.3% decrease over the 2021 budget. As you recall, as we entered last September, we had a number of families choose homeschooling over in-class or remote learning. And this was contributed mostly to the decrease in enrollment in the revised estimates. So as we move into the new budget year and more operating normalcy, we have experienced than what we've experienced through COVID-19. More of the families are choosing to come back to in-person learning in September. So we look forward to welcoming all of our students back in September. Digging a little deeper into the details, we are down 38 students in JK, or 12.9%, but to offset this, we're seeing an increase in all other grades throughout the board. And we do have a number of new families moving into the area, which is helping to support our increases. On page 50, from a capacity standpoint, we did discover that 2 locations, specifically Mary Immaculate and Holy Family, which both have porta packs attached to the building, didn't properly reflect the on-the-ground capacity. So when we utilize temporary space, the loading in these spaces should be 0. However, in our systems, they were loaded as a regular classroom. So therefore, we have reflected the new on-the-ground capacity in our analysis, which sets our board at 111% capacity, or 462 space deficit. To accommodate the existing enrollment pressures, the board over the last few years has invested in 25 additional temporary accommodation spaces, or portables. The board also continues to lease and rent additional spaces to support enhanced learning opportunities for our students. And more recently, with the recent announcements, especially with St. Anthony's, which houses 6 of our portables, we're now able to move to a tender to proceed with tender for the 8 classroom and 4-room childcare addition. So we look forward to moving forward with those projects. On page 51, the board's operating revenue, which is provided primarily through the Grants for Student Needs funding, is projected to remain stable into 2021-2022 at $69.4 million. This is compared to revised estimates from 2020-2021. Priority and partnerships funds, or PPFs, are typically released throughout the school year, so the amounts that can only be reasonably estimated have been included, and they are listed on the provincial grants other line at 1.5 million. 2.9% of our revenues come from other sources other than the Ministry of Education. So that's through fundraising, revenue generating activities such as adult education, international student programs, general donations, etc. Capital from a revenue perspective, and what we estimate that we can reasonably spend in 2021 is 7.9 million. What this doesn't include is the value of the capital priority projects that remain on our books as approved projects. So in total, we have $34 million in approved capital priority projects at St. Anthony's, St. Mary's, Notre Dame, and St. Basil's Childcare. And as you will see on the capital page, we have allocated a reasonable portion to the 2021-2022 school year. So page 52 breaks down the revenues by each allocation. So Ontario's 72 school boards who provide K-12 education in Ontario are funded through the Grants for Student Needs. So the details of the grants can be found in the technical papers. And really the purpose of the technical paper is to provide an overview of the details and the formulas used throughout the calculations of the Grants for Student Needs. So the funding model consists of the Pupil Foundation Grant and the School Foundation Grant, as well as 15 special purpose grants. So when comparing budget to revised budget, we can see where those changes result. We are up slightly in funding through the Pupil Foundation Grant as a result of the 1% increase to salary and benefits, as well as the technology funding provided to school boards, as outlined in our GSN summary. The cost adjustment and teacher qualification is up slightly as a result of permanent staffing who were on leave are coming back in September. When a staff member goes off on leave for the whole year, they're replaced with within the financials by a long-term occasional staff member, an LTO. And so at budget, we don't always necessarily know who all those LTO positions will be throughout the year. So while as we move into revised estimates in the fall, we're able to more closely reflect our budget for the year. Just to add to that, teaching salaries are also based on a grid, and new teachers are typically paid lower on the grid than longer serving staff, which results in the fluctuations in the top-up funding we receive from the qualifications and experience perspective. Again, with PPS or priority and partnership funding, we only budget for what we can reasonably estimate at the time, and these funds, again, these funds are typically received throughout the school year, and we adjust amounts accordingly as we get notification. And the capital is split out by funding source. And again, minor TCA is one of those funds that we scale back on until we know for sure where we're at financially. On page 53, the board's operating expenses are projected to increase 0.1% over the 2021-2022 revised estimates. Only amounts that can be reasonably estimated have been included. So the summary presented here is a consolidation of over 159 different program codes related to COVID-19 and school reopening, expenditures for special education initiatives, mental health and well-being, equity and inclusion, Indigenous education, student success initiatives, enhanced cleaning, school operations, technology, related costs, just to name a few. From an instructional expense perspective, we're sitting at 76.2% of our expenditures, or 52.9 million, are related to instructional. We have 3.2 million that's related to administration, which is 4.7%. Transportation expenses are $4.7 million, or 6.9% of operating budgets. And then pupil accommodations, which is referencing our facilities, is at $7.8 million, or 11.3%. So capital funding for additional technology, security, and projects, and the roll-in of one-to-one technology for grade JK to grade 3 students has been incorporated into this capital plan. And as I alluded to earlier, the grade 4 to grade 12 roll-in of one-to-one was successfully conducted this in the 2020-2021 school year. So we'll see some more details on the capital page. So page 54 is just another view of the same information. We call this Schedule 10, where our expenses are listed by category and class. And that totals the 69.4 million. So on page 55, our capital investment for 2021 is 7.9 million. With delays experienced as a result of COVID-19 in terms of mobilizing projects, some capital projects deferred in 2020-2021 have been carried forward to the 21-22 school year. So 2021-2022 capital investments include our mobilization of the 8-classroom and 4-room childcare addition at St. Anthony's Catholic School in Kincardine. We're going to initiate the planning phase of the new childcare addition at St. Basil's and Notre Dame once we receive the approval to proceed through the Ministry of Education. We have some school condition improvements that we're planning to do in terms of our HVAC unit upgrades. We have some roofing upgrades at Immaculate Conception in Formosa, as well as Sacred Heart Catholic School in Teeswater. We also have investments set aside for a turf replacement and upgrades to St. Joseph Catholic School in Port Elgin. And we're going to continue to support the board-wide technology initiative, specifically the one-to-one technology rollout for our JK, SK students through grade 3. So that will then have all students and staff across the board with their own device. We're also going to have some refresh devices, security disaster recovery enhancements, risk management planning, and software upgrades as we move some of our systems to SparkRock 365 and continue with the implementation of Aspen, our student information system. Okay, so all of that leads us to page 56, which is the details of the accumulated surplus for the board based on, so this is based on our 2019-2020 financial statements as well as our 2020-2021 revised estimates. We're anticipating a closing surplus balance of $11 million, consisting of $2.1 million of unappropriated surplus, 6.2 of internally appropriated funds, and of which 2 million of the long-term capital planning has been earmarked as a result of our latest announcement from St. Anthony's. And we have 2.6 million that's unavailable for compliance. So this is the school generated funds and the cost of land that's sitting on our books currently. So as you can see, we have an operating accumulated surplus of $110,605. And then down on the committed capital projects line, those are the number of portables and some, I believe there was some technology in there over the past years where we've used our accumulated surplus. And these are unsupported capital projects, meaning we need to fund the amortization as a result of these projects. So we have $110,605 set aside through our operating budget that offsets the amortization of those committed capitals to generate a balanced budget. So the next section, sorry, I guess I'll finish with our staffing and then we'll get into the next section where we detail the some details within different program codes. But on page 57 summarizes our staffing by FTE or full-time equivalent. So 2020-2021 provided for additional COVID-19 related funding to support additional staffing in online learning, mental health, enhanced cleaning, and student support, etc. As we move into 2021-2022, our class size distribution has resulted in a change to the class allocations and therefore resulted in a 5.2% decrease in teacher staffing. Additional educational assistant positions have been added to address student needs through the implementation of System Priority Fund, Rural and Northern Education Fund, additional staffing supports from COVID-19 funding, and mental health supports. Our early childhood educators decrease of 14.3% is due to lower enrollment in kindergarten, as well as the closure of the board run before and after school program at Sacred Heart Teeswater. The board is currently investigating some alternative program offerings to support the needs of our families. And through our facilities department also, we have made some changes there to support the $34 million in capital priority funding. So we've added an administrative assistant and a supervisor of facility services to support the increase in projects and workload. So on page 58, this next section titled Budget Summary. So this takes the information that we just seen and allocates it out by a specific program. So it just slices and dices the information in a few different ways. But we'll start with page 59 because this is one of the reports that we look to have, well, this is one of the reports we have to be compliant with as we submit our budget through EFIS. So we look for all the compliant check marks on this page. So on page 62 and 63, we look at mental health, and we will be looking at this from two different angles. The first slide breaks down our mental health and well-being funding by funding source through PPF and GSN funding for a total investment of $715,754. So the details of the PPF as well as the GSNs are listed there with some commentary. On the next slide, on slide 63, we are allocating the same information, but by category and class. And we can see that the mental health budget is up $9,000 over the 2020-2021 revised estimates and almost $230,000 over the 2020-2021 budget. On page 66, from a special education perspective, we're looking to invest $1.5 million in additional funding to support our student needs. Alex and his team have done a tremendous job in building a rubric that will identify the needs of our students and help us align the required supports. So we will see an increase in staffing as an addition of 3.6 FTE or 5 more EAs are added to our complement, providing the board with 102 FTE or 106 total staff. So when you compare our EA allocation against our total school population or student population, we have 1 EA for every 46 average daily enrollment in our students. Funding to support after school skills development program. It's an amount that has moved from the GSN, or it moved into the GSN from a PPF, so that is included in this budget as well. And 2021-2022 will also see the implementation of a new streamlined special education structure that's been designed from the communication and needs identified by our frontline staff. So this new structure will increase the supports in schools, and as we add 2 new additional system-wide coaches or spec ed coaches to support the needs of our students. On page 68, details our Indigenous education, where we will see a $127,858 increase to provide a budget of $590,383. So through Mike's leadership, the team is looking to carry on with the initiatives as identified in the current year board action plan, as well as continue with the implementation of the RISE program. So that's reconnecting identity and spirit through the environment. It's a program for students to explore their identity by reconnecting their spirit to the land, to build cultural awareness, to refocus and plan for the future using knowledge and wisdom of Indigenous people. On page 70 speaks to a number of GSN embedded programs is listed here. A total of $2.5 million in funding will allow for consistency and robust training opportunities for all cross sections of Bruce Grey Catholic District School Board. Our first priority is the mental health and well-being of both students and staff, particularly as students return to school in these uncertain times. Additional funding will assist with supporting these initiatives. Student success and school transitioning will continue to be a focus in 2021-2022. In addition, students will continue to be provided with rich pathway learning opportunities. So the next 9 pages, pages 71 to 79, take us through the transition planning details from welcome to kindergarten, pathway planning, student success initiatives, specialist high skill major details, and some information on our Genesis program at Sacred Heart High School. So we'll just take a moment to, I know you've had an opportunity to read through all of these. So pathway and planning from K to 8 to grade 6 to 12 and 7 to 12. Our orientations at both St. Mary's High School and Sacred Heart High School. Our students' success initiatives with our specialist high skills major, co-op, dual credit, transition planning, student engagement, and our student success teams. Specialist high skills major at Sacred Heart High School. We have a new construction program there. We have an environment, health and wellness and manufacturing program. And then at St. Mary's High School, we have the health and wellness specialist high skills major, as well as the transportation program. And our Genesis program at Sacred Heart High School. So lots of great programs and initiatives. So on page 81, another way to look at our instructional expenses is $50.5 million in expenditures between our elementary and our secondary schools, as mentioned earlier. And this represents $76.2 million of our total expenditures. So it's just another way to slice and dice. But we do have on page 82, into 2021-2022, we continue to focus on the science of reading and comprehensive math programs. So we've included some details in here. As well, embedded in all we do is our religious and family life programs for both students and staff. So we have some special events that we have included within our budget or continue to support. So our board-wide faith formation day, our annual applause breakfast. We have the annual diocese mass and the Advent and Lent retreats. We also look forward every year to our Catholic Education Week and our many faith formation events and opportunities and workshops that are provided. And included on page 85, we've detailed information about our French programs that we offer. So from a funding perspective, we're funded for grades 4 to grade 12, but as a board, we continue to offer core French across our board from JK to grade 12. On page 87, 5.5 million summarizes a number of instructional and non-instructional programs that speak to our continued rollout and upgrades to the religion curriculum, retreat and professional development opportunities for our staff, education and knowledge building of key business practices through continued rollout of a board-wide financial accountability framework, ongoing annual subscriptions and licensing for various information systems used throughout the board, ongoing repairs and maintenance of computer technology, implementation of the multi-year technology systems and security services strategic plan, our policy and procedure review with focus on liability and risk management, safety, crisis management, and liability. So that gives us a little summary of all of those programs. On page 88, details our facility services budget at $5.3 million, and this is up 3.7% as a result of COVID-related enhancements. So one item I'd like to note is that each year our board is ranked out of 72 boards through the Sustainable Schools initiatives that look at energy consumption and efficiency. And in 2021, we have been ranked number 12. And when we compare this to last year's ranking, we were at ranked as 21. So a lot of great work has been done through our facilities team and our work with the custodians and our continuous education improvements that have been made across the system. So I'd just like to highlight and thank Al Hasty and the facilities services team for all of their work and efforts. It's a great accomplishment. In terms of student transportation, we're sitting at $4.6 million, and we continue to invest as we have in other years in late busing, co-op, our regular home to school transportation costs. All value-added services that we provide for our students. On page 91 speaks to our many committees and initiatives at $397,000. So we have busing for various athletic, music, arts events across the board, strategic planning initiatives, parent engagement funding, privacy and information management initiatives, union liaison, library and office administration, staff PD sessions, health and safety, AODA committee, expenses, organizational culture and well-being, community partnerships and planning committees, etc. So have all been summarized in here. So page 92 speaks to our community partnerships again and how blessed we are to have so many great connections. And as we heard from Paulette Lippert at our May community partners meeting, she spoke a lot about how essential these partnerships are for our experiential learning opportunities. On page 94 speaks to our PPF or priority and partnership funds. As we've seen earlier, and again, only those that can be reasonably estimated have been included. So we have the mass strategy, OEAP, well-being and mental health, parents reaching out, third-party deposits deferred from the previous years, as well as some of our COVID funding. And on page 96 summarizes our school generated funds, which is projected to be $619,000 as we've estimated through field trips, donations, student activities, and other. Page 98 and 99 detail some of our acronyms. We continue to add to this list year after year because we know how many acronyms there are in education. So we continue to update this as new acronyms have been formed. So we've got them included here for your reference. So here we are at page 101, and I'd like to just pause for a moment before I ask for a motion and ask if there is any questions or comments that anyone has.
Alicia, I do have two quick questions, if I might. Looking back at page 62, the mental health information, you noted the comments that were there, the purpose comments. I'm curious, were they ministry-driven comments or did you generate those comments?
Those comments came as a summary from the PPFs that we were provided with.
Perfect, that's what I thought. And then on page 81, line number 63, you presented, sorry, ignore my dinging there. continuing education at 81,200, I believe it was. I'm just curious what that would be.
That speaks to our driver's education.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So
That's
it's
it for
that
me.
revenue comes in and revenue goes out for that.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that makes perfect sense why it's not at elementary at all. That's it for me. Does anyone else have any questions for Alicia? Well, that's always a good sign, Alicia, that everything was wildly, clearly, perfectly presented. And we're very happy to see a balanced budget again. And thank you very much to you and your whole team for putting this together in such a great package. It's nice to have all the highlights that go with it from the year and all the projected information. I will let you go ahead and ask for the motion if you'd like.
Sure, I'd be honored to. So I'd like to ask for a motion that the Bruce Grey Catholic District School Board approve the estimates for the fiscal year September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2022, with total revenues of $77,333,549 and total expenditures of $77,333,549, representing a balanced budget as presented.
Motion by Bev, seconded by Norm. All in favor? Carried. Excellent. Thank you very much, Alicia.
Thank you very much.
We can move on to student trustee reports. Doreen has forwarded from Baxter and Mackenzie. Both have sent regrets today. Exams and school have become priority, which is just what we want. And we can move on with Quentin if you'd like to present.
Yeah, so last report of the 2020-2021 school year. It is fairly short as we've just continued our online learning. For Catholic Faith and Culture, Ms. Skiba led a year-end prayer service on June 9th to finish the 2020-2021 school year. Father Kuzma was also a part of the service. For stewardship of our resources, the checks for the YPI contest are on their way to the organizations. The 4 organizations who were tied and won were West for Youth, the Chapman House of Owen Sound, Habitat for Humanity, and Southwest Ontario Aboriginal Health Access Centre. So they each received a check for $1,250. For student achievement, the Senate met one last time on June 8th to close out the year and discuss our starting plans for September. The graduation committee is hard at work planning the year and celebration. They plan on having a virtual celebration with a drive-by diploma pickup. As well, there will be a gift bag for each student attending. The robotics team won 3rd in the control award category at the Canada Cup. So they were working all virtually and cohort specific throughout the year, building robots. And I was actually a part of that. And they competed at 3 virtual competitions throughout Ontario. And finally, on the last pillar, mental health and well-being, the mental health team, along with guidance counselors, held Google Meets for each grade to have connections with students in other classes, just for some spark in the People's Weeks. And finally, students are excited for our summer vacation to begin and close out what a great year. That is all I have.
Well, congratulations on closing out the great year, Quentin. Does anyone have any questions for Quentin before we move on? Excellent. Thank you. We look forward to having you back next year too, Quentin.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, the report from Sacred Heart has been forwarded, so I'd like to ask that there's a motion that the board receive the student trustee reports as presented. Motion by Linda, seconded by Mike. All in favor? And carried. Policies for approval. The Policy Review Committee met on June 16th, and the following policy is recommended for approval as amended. So I'd like to ask that there's a motion that the board approve updates to BP 9-2 Learning Services as recommended by the Policy Review Committee. Can I have that motion? Motion by Mike, seconded by Bev. All in favor? And carried. Perfect. The following policies will be rescinded, and there'll be becoming procedures under that policy BP 9-2 Learning Services. They will include BP 9-4, the individual psychological assessment of students, and BP 9-10, home and hospital instructional services. I'd like to call again that a motion for the board to rescind BP 9-4, individual psychological assessment of students, and BP 9-10, home and hospital instructional services as recommended by the Policy Review Committee. Motion by Robin, seconded by Linda. All in favor? And carried. Policies and procedures that are standing now can all be viewed on our website, which is listed. The next Policy Review Committee meeting will be August 25th, 2021 at 1:30. Are there any questions regarding Policy Review Committee? Seeing none, we can move on to information and reports. And Norm, if you'd like to go ahead with the Mental Health Advisory Committee report. You're on mute, Norm.
Is that better?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we met on June the 16th, and I have the following highlights to announce. A new Keystone position was announced, and that of System Navigator. This is a key position which involves collaboration among all partners to better coordinate efforts overall. The position was filled on May 3rd by Bill Martin of Keystone, who has served many roles with Keystone over the years. The Choices Youth and Addiction Program, Jennifer Moser, reported that they do not operate directly in the schools, so they operate from a variety of sites in the local community, and they welcome any offers of available space. Their primary goal is to shorten wait lists and increase availability. They have produced an information flyer for high schools on how to connect by video, cell phone, or direct contact. This outreach project is showing significant progress. And Matt Bouvan of the Canadian Mental Health Association reported on behalf of Jackie Ralphs that they have hundreds of sunflower packets which are destined for all grade 2 classes to teach growth nurturance. And they have produced a video and a puppet show called LLF, which means Live Life Fully. Phyllis Lovell, CEO of Bruce Gray Child and Family Services, outlined their Circle of Security program that they have adopted, which is to improve positive communication overall. She announced the video contest winner of the We Care video contest, Ruth Duncan, a grade 12 student of St. Mary's High School, won the award. Dave Roy, manager of mental health services, outlined their mental health action plan based on 4 principles: offer a clear menu of service, teach and promote empathy in education, reinforce clear pathways to support, and build self-efficacy in leading a mentally healthy school. Kristen Fry and Rose Hillier, representing OECTA Elementary and Secondary, expressed concern for students not checking in and for families needing support. Their main focus is on building strong and resilient relationships with children and families they serve. Christie of the Grey Bruce Public Health Unit reports a focus on vaccine rollout. 0 new cases are becoming more frequent. They have compiled a helpful resource available on request called ReCare, which lists all the community mental health resources available and how to access them. Kim Scott, on behalf of the special education team, focuses on running social groups entitled Social Express, one in the North area and one in the South area. She provides open house kits and runs school open houses on request, and also prepares resources for students and runs parent workshops. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Norm. Does anyone have any questions for Norm? Oh, I'm just going to read this chat here. One quick correction. BGCFS protocol and approach is called Signs of Safety. Thanks, Dave. And I don't see any questions for Norm, so I will go ahead with the Catholicity update. We met virtually on June 9th. The terms of reference are almost complete. We're going to, excuse me, reach out to a few other groups to see if they'd like to be have committee representation on the table there in the new year, just before we finalize the document. That would be like student representation, unions, community partners, etc. Charlene Hoffman provided an update on all the wonderful things that are taking place in our board. A few items that have taken place were the spiritual retreats, First Communion retreats, Father Toby's presentation for A Better Tent City for the Theology on Tap, and the weekly meditations are continuing for staff, with note of a few upcoming events that they're preparing for in the 2021-2022 year. Prep's underway for the NTIP program, and their little tote packages are being put together. And the Catholic Education Week, which will be May 1st to 6th, 2022, with the theme of Rebuild, Restore, and Renew Together. And we'll have the Bishop's Dinner return this year, well, 2022, during Catholic Education Week, which will be May 4th, I believe. Details obviously to follow. Jen Kirby gave an update for the mental health team, and they are currently working on plans for the summer to continue to meet the needs of the board and the system. And the mental health team continues to grow and are providing supports to students individually and also offering classroom supports. Mary Skiba updated on some of the great initiatives at St. Mary's High School. Their Lenten drive saw 175 thank you letters sent to our military overseas. $700 was donated to the Owen Sound Pregnancy Center, and 12 big bags of clothing were collected and waiting for them to open up and accept donations at the Women's Center of Grey Bruce. Brad Lacey gave an update, and notably they have created a new group at Sacred Heart Mildmay, the Boys Friendship Group, and they meet every Thursday with Jackie Shields, the CYW, and they're hoping to run that again in the fall. Also, the CPCO offer a bursary to each high school student to a student who exemplifies the virtues of deep caring and the Catholic graduation expectations, and graduation ceremonies and preparations are underway. And our meeting schedule for the next year has been set, with our first meeting on November 11th, 2021, January, March, and June to follow. Hopefully, some of them may be in person, although the virtual component may hang around for a while. And that would be the Catholicity update, and I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any. Okay, seeing none and just jumping back to my agenda, I'm going to offer the floor to Linda for her SEAC update, please. You're on mute, Linda.
I clicked it, but it didn't unclick. Notre Dame hosted our SEAC meeting on June 16th. Melissa Strymus and Jocelyn Auger presented on behalf of Notre Dame School. There are currently 593 students enrolled at the school. The main focus of their presentation was on in-school learning during school shutdowns due to COVID. So they have 12 students, 11 EAs, 3 teachers, plus administrative and custodial staff at school each day during the shutdown. The students and EAs are set up in socially distanced stations in the library. Each day, students will log on to meet with their teachers and peers to receive assignments and instructions for the day. The learning and academics are mixed throughout the day with physical and social activities to enhance the in-school experience for these students. Notre Dame is taking full advantage of an itinerant EA to help grade 8 students with special needs prepare for their transition to St. Mary's High School. This EAA will also be placed at St. Mary's in September to further help these students transition successfully. Alicia Lance presented the special education budget, and 8.73 million has been designated for special education funding through the GSN. SIA will receive 191,000 for the purchase and maintenance of furniture and technology for special education needs. ABA funding will be provided for professional expertise and training, and after-school programs for students with ASD will be provided as well. Funding has been provided for 4 additional staff, 2 behavioral specialists, and 2 social workers. And as far as the board improvement plan goes with special education, although it's not specifically designated in the plan, it has been woven into all 4 pillars of the board improvement plan. It establishes the process for communication and better meeting the needs of students and staff working with students. involved in special education. Special education has been restructured to better meet the needs of students, staff, and schools. There is a focus on supporting staff to better differentiate the needs of our students, of our special education students. And that's what I've got. So if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Linda. Is there any questions for Linda? Okay, seeing none, we can move on. For your information, it added in the package is a overview of the activities of the Policy Review Committee for 2020, 2021. And we can carry on here to questions, comments by trustees. Robin, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the thought exchange. I'm just looking, I only have Facebook. I don't have Instagram, Snapchat, or anything like that. And the only thing that well, I guess you can't see it from here. The only thing I can pull up on the Catholic School Board is that our Facebook pages, Bruce Grey Catholic District School Board wants to hear from you. And I can't find anything on the page where I can actually go to the link to participate in the survey. It just offers a link to on a YouTube video on Thought Exchange and to learn more about Thought Exchange, that type of thing. And it will take us to our Catholic School Board website, but maybe I'm doing something wrong. But is there going to be another link that makes it a little easier so parents can participate? Because I think it's only open till June 30th. And again, maybe it's just my tech savviness that's lacking, but I can't find it on the Facebook page for our school board.
Sorry about that, Robin. So we did send it to all BGCDSB staff, and I can make sure that you receive a copy. All trustees receive the link.
Oh, I received the link through the email. What I meant was for parents to participate, because on Facebook, parents were sharing it's a picture of a girl with a braid over her shoulder with her ear out like this saying, "We want to hear from you." But when I go to the Catholic School Board Facebook page, that's all I can find. I can't find a new link where parents can actually, participate. It said, stay tuned. Something about a link will follow. And I'm just wondering if it got dropped somehow. Is it just me? But when I go to the Bruce Grey Catholic District School Board Facebook page, I can't find a link to actually participate in the survey as a parent. I can find it on my email as part of the Bruce Grey Catholic School Board trustee staff, that type of thing. But I want to make sure parents can access it. And maybe it's not loading for me, but the only thing I can get is telling us that it's coming soon. The link will follow.
Yeah, it should have been sent to you, but we'll follow up. I'll follow up with Sam.
Oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Isn't it open for parents? I mean, parents in the general public, not through.
Yeah, so the link was shared with students and families of grade 4 to 12 students.
Okay, that's my mistake. Yes, I've received the email. I thought the link was going to be posted social media and then people could participate that way. So that was my misunderstanding. Okay, that's why I kept checking for it on the Facebook page. I did receive it in an email though. I was just worried other parents might not have. Okay, sorry about that. That was my confusion.
No problem. Thanks for clarifying too, Kathy. Is there any further questions or comments from trustees? Okay, seeing none. There are no outstanding notices of motion that I'm aware of. I have no further remarks except to say have a wonderful summer, everyone. And please find some time to just enjoy the weather. If you're staycationing or vacationing, if we get that lucky, get your second dose if you haven't yet. And maybe in August we can come together and not be virtual, but we'll assess that later, closer to that date. And future business is listed with our next board meeting being Monday, August 30th, 2021. And Committee of the Whole will begin at 9:15 with the regular board meeting at 10:30. I guess I could just ask for the motion that the regular board meeting be adjourned at 12:24 p.m. Motion by Mike, seconded by Bev. All in favor? And carried. And thank you, Dave, for joining us. Enjoy your summer too. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Happy summer solstice. Enjoy all these extra minutes we get today. And if I don't talk to you soon enough, I'll see you for sure in August.